The future of music.
The future of music. The future of music.
The future of music.
The future of music.
The Future of Music podcast.
Hey there, and welcome back yet again to the Future of Music podcast, where, as always, we keep you up to date on how to survive and thrive in the future of music. I am your wonderful, super kind standing host, but I have my super attractive, kind, wonderful co-host, Jonathan Boyd. I am Ryan Withrow. He is Jonathan Boyd, and we are so excited to be here today. We actually have something that I've been looking forward to for a minute, John. I know that you maybe, I don't think you've ever had like a chance to get in and have a conversation with today's guest, but I have plenty of times, and he's actually become, over the years, one of my greatest friends. So I'm really excited to get into that and really start diving into the world of Rotem Sivan. But before that, I have to remind a point at everybody as well. I have to remind them that we need you to subscribe. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you click whatever buttons technology is using now to be reminded of when our podcasts are released. And on the podcast channels out there, make sure that you follow us so that you do the same. And we'll make sure that we keep coming back to you with this wonderful stuff. But it's time for our wonderful guest, Jonathan. And again, like I said, Rotem Sivan. This guy is just like one of the kindest, most wonderful human beings. He's got the voice of smooth jazz without even having the guitar. And, you know, he's also got fancy bios out there. And I feel like a lot of people kind of stray away from the fancy bios every now and then, but I'm okay to read it.
What do they say? What do they say?
You know, I'll tell you what they say. They say that Rotem is a globally acclaimed guitarist, hailed as a remarkable talent by Downbeat magazine, and a bona fide guitar god. Look at that title. What do you think about that? Yeah. By Treble FM gave him that title, with honors in classical composition. Now, see, that I could get into. You know, the jazz, it's a little rough. And performance. Tours literally worldwide. He's played so many festivals, so many countries. He has a massive online presence, and I kind of guarantee a lot of people listening are going to know Rotem from his online presence, with hundreds of thousands of followers and subscribers with all of his guitar education series online. He has plenty of albums, and we're going to dive into the most recent and all of his album work so that we can make sure you pump that into your Spotify, your whatever. That's the only thing I listen to. That's all I got. But anyway, he is also, by the way, been on the Billboard Jazz list at number 16, the iTunes Jazz listing as number 1. And wow. Rotem is praised for energy, mastery, unique sound, which he does have a wonderful, incredible, unique sound. Transformative force in jazz, Rotem is. And the bio also says something I believe as well, that he is leaving an incredible mark on the musical landscape. So with that, I'd love to welcome the wonderful Rotem Sivan. Thank you, Rotem, for being here, my friend. I just mentioned it. I think you have enough guitars. I think you may want to slow down or build more walls. Either one. Thank you for being here. Well, first of all, welcome. And second, it's been a while since we've caught up, and I would love to hear kind of what have you been up to, man? Are you touring? Are you recording? Are you doing everything? Like, what's the life of Rotem at this point?
Thanks, man. Really happy to be here. So thanks for having me. So there's a bunch of projects that are happening kind of at the same time right now. So I just finished a trio album, like a jazz trio project. We actually just mixed it as well, and we're mastering it next week. So I'm really, really excited about it. It's a lot of new music. And so this is really cool. We played a couple of short kind of tours in the US with that trio. It's with this cat, Hamish Smith on bass, insane bass player, amazing guy. And then Miguel Russell on drums, also incredible. And so we played a couple of shows recently in Denver and in Colorado and Orlando as well. The 1905, a couple of nights there. And then we're doing a week in San Francisco at the end of August. And now we're kind of preparing to book some and booking some stuff for later in the fall and next year. So kind of working on that stuff. going to put out the album. So that's kind of like in the jazz department, I guess I would say, in terms of this band. And then there's a project that is called Jelly Club that I don't know. I don't think we talked about this project. It's quite new. Yeah, it's really fun. So there's a good friend of mine, Sophia Urista, is the vocalist on that project. She's also playing with Brass Against the Machine and some other kind of cool projects. Yeah, so we hang out quite a bit. She was here actually just earlier today. We were doing a writing session today. And we're in the process of putting some music out. We just released one song. We finished another one. It's coming out hopefully in a couple of weeks, 3-4 weeks. And we have a couple of shows in New York and around. So we played couple of nights in different clubs. The next show we're doing is on the 15th of June at the Sultan Room with that project. And it's really like basically pop. I mean, it's, there are solos and there are things, but it's really pop. So it's her, it's myself. The drummer is James Smushler. If you, I don't know if you know him, maybe.
I don't. John, do you know? Have you heard?
No, I think so.
New to us.
Moonhooch, maybe? Maybe you guys know Moonhooch, that band. No, it's okay. It's an amazing band. I mean, I'll send you a link. They're amazing. So this is his band from back in the day. He left that band about 2 years ago. So, but they're pretty huge by now. They're kind of playing like 2-3K venues and stuff, and a lot of cool stuff. So he's like, doing our project now full time. So it's us, Sophia, and then the bass there is Noam Tans. Are also amazing, insane bass. Plays with Mike Stern quite a bit as well. So
it's amazing, man. So you're not up to much.
So basically, yeah, you're sitting on the couch doing almost nothing.
What's that?
Yeah.
I said you're basically sitting on the couch, not really doing anything, right?
Yeah. Trying.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get into it more, I'm sure. But man, all of that, and then you've got all of the content creation, let alone, I mean, like just practice in general, which is just like insane. Do you sleep like 1.5 hours or 2?
Practice?
You get 2 every now and then. Sleep. Do
I
you sleep 1.5 or 2?
I sleep 1.5. Yeah, I sleep not enough. Yeah, that's the only thing.
Yeah, it's okay. That's all right. Well, man, it's again really, really an honor to have you here. And I've been doing nothing but nerding out to your music, to your videos, to everything this whole week. And it's amazing what you do. Not just your musicianship, but your ability to teach like the most complicated, insane concepts in the simplest ways. I mean, I had been teaching people for years about modes, right? And I remember that was the first video of yours I watched, which was probably from a while ago, was your deep explanation of modes, each mode, and like actually playing through the tones of modes and how they impact that modal tone and all that stuff. And I was like, man, like I've been teaching it wrong, dude. Like it took this guy 8 minutes, and it took me 28 years. But yeah, really good stuff, man. I really appreciate you. So yeah, I mean, obviously that's how I know you. That's how I know you in the now. But I mean, it started somewhere. So I'm going to ask you to dive in for us on like, how did this all start, man? Like when you were young, like when did you first get into music? How did you grow into where you're at now? And I'm just really interested in that entire story and journey for you.
Wow. Okay. I mean, I can tell the story. Well, I guess I always liked music and always liked guitar. I remember asking my parents to like take music lessons, and it didn't like guitar, and they were like, "Ah, you're too young." And then my dad used to play some piano. I actually have no memories of him playing the piano, but I know he actually studied and kind of played, not seriously, but he did play. But I never actually heard him play, which is kind of crazy. But we did have a piano at the house. And at one point I was like, maybe you can teach me some piano. And he was like, okay. And then he got really upset at me. Like I remember I was like first grade or something. And I just remember like him being upset at me. I don't even remember what happened. And then it ended very quickly. I just, like, okay, I guess not. And then I really want to play guitar, and they're like, you're too young and stuff, and whatever. And then eventually I asked them, and they're like, yeah, I guess now it's fine. So
what age was this?
I think I was like, maybe like 4th or 5th grade or something. I don't know, something like that. And then I started taking some lessons. But it was just like chords. but I really liked guitar always. That is a memory. I remember I did get like a guitar when I was 3, but it wasn't really a functional guitar. It was kind of like a small, it's like, but I really liked that idea for some reason, not really clear. And then I just kind of played songs, through like middle school. My friends had like a band or two, like just playing some songs. Nothing. I didn't even like thought too much about it. But then I remember like in like middle school or something, I don't know, being 13 or 14 or something, and then like being like, wow, this is kind of cool. It's like, and I was like, I just felt there's this whole kind of universe of this magical thing that I have no idea what's going on there really. Remember just listening to classical music and different stuff, like Leonard Cohen and Jimi Hendrix, and just like, it's like, wow, what's going on there? It's like, it's so beautiful. And I remember I had a friend that was he lived in New York / Israel, and he kind of traveled a little bit somehow. I got connected to him through music. And I remember one time we hung out and we were listening to some Bach stuff together, like the B minor mass. And he was kind of saying the chord as they were going. And I was like, wait, what? Wait, you can listen to this music and know what is... I was kind of shocked, I've never seen somebody do that before. And I was like, wow, okay. And I was like, okay, I have to understand what's going on. And then I started getting more and more into it, slowly but surely. And then I switched that. We had like in high school, we had some like kind of creative departments. So I was doing some, actually, I studied some theater then. And then I was like, I want to switch to music. So I switched to music, where I met a lot of really talented people. It was all classical though. So it was kind of shocking in a positive way, I guess. So like we had, I had my first ear training class at, like I guess it was like high school, middle school. Yeah, I guess it's high school. And, the teacher is playing some melodies and you need to write it down. And I was like, what? What's going on? And everybody's just writing like this. And we were 10 or 12 kids. And like 3 of them were competing about like how fast they write it. They're all writing as she's playing, but some had like faster writing skill. It wasn't about like they're all perfect pitch, everything, right? So just writing as she's playing. I was like, what just happened? I was like kind of shocked. And then I became like, my best friend was eventually one of these guys, which has like, he's kind of like a genius basically. Just insane ear. Actually the best ear I ever met in my life. So if you fall on the piano, it tells you exactly what happened, right? So he's just like really just insane level. I was like just kind of shocked then. I was like, I remember I was like, okay, I need to get my shit together. I was like, all right. So then I started really practicing and taking it really seriously, because I was like, okay, these guys, they know what's up, and I have no idea what's going on. So I started learning and studying and really getting into it seriously. And with my friend, again, Yuval, he's actually teaching at Manus. He's a professor at Manus now. But then, like, I remember, like, we would listen to Bill Evans together, just like listening, And then one morning we just go to class and he just plays the whole thing. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Why did you transcribe it? He's like, oh man, we were listening to it together. And I was like, oh, like the voice, like really, like I was like, just okay, like, gotta practice. So the level of people that I met like in high school was quite impressive. So I was like, okay, that's some serious ability. So I need to understand at least what's going on. So I think that kind of started to hook me up into like understanding and studying. And and then basically I started studying classical composition in Tel Aviv University because I wanted to take lessons with this ear training teacher. His name is Dr. Batsheva Rubinstein, she's like kind of a world renowned in her field. And so I kind of took a few private lessons, but it wasn't that cheap. And she was like, you can just come to the university. And in Israel, school is basically free. It's really, really cheap. And you can also get scholarships. So it's like, you can pay like, I don't know, 500 or maybe 1,000 for the year and you're done. It's like, and then you get some scholarship. It's like really, it's not expensive. So basically I did that and I study with her because of school. Like we had like, 2 or 3 classes a week and other things. And I was like, oh, it's cool. I'm learning music. It's great. But then I really wanted to go to New York because I did play jazz, and I was like just interested in jazz, but I thought it would be a good idea to expand my, harmonic knowledge and kind of know how things started, I guess, like basically. But again, it was a deep dive because it was definitely, it was a full on classical department. So, so we had to learn how to write a fugue, it was like,
Wow.
so I learned a lot in the process, while again practicing jazz and playing with people. And then I got into a few schools in the US, but I didn't get enough scholarship. So I did it again. Like I basically tested it one more time because they gave me maybe a decent scholarship, but for me, coming from Israel, it was just too expensive. And then the next semester, the next year, I did it again, and then I got really good scholarship, and then eventually I went to New School. So studied there. I was really stressed about like the level of musicianship because like New York, it's like, wow, going to New York. It's like, already the dream, kind of like to, be there. And I thought like everybody's going to be amazing, and indeed there are some people that were amazing at school. I remember like there was this bass player I played with, his name is Chris Smith, is amazing bass player. He, I just first semester in school, he had like a gig with Jeff Tain Watts at the Village Vanguard, which is just like, okay, great, just like amazing. And but the level was very varied, I would say. People knew a lot, and then some people didn't really know a lot. And so it was cool to meet a bunch of people and be in New York. But I was just trying to practice and learn music and do that kind of stuff. And then only when school ended I was like, okay, I'm going to try and give it a shot, like try to like actually be a musician. I remember it was somehow an important switch because I was just practicing and going to school to practice and playing with my friends and and going to some shows, but not, I went to some jam sessions and stuff and played, but I was like, I don't know, I wasn't sure if I can be a musician, like in a real kind of way. And I really wanted to record something, but I was like, I'm not ready, and I know that kind of conversation. And when I got out of school, which was like 10 years ago, I graduated in 2013 or the end of 12, 13, something like that. Yeah, like 10 years ago. So I was like, okay, I'm going to, record an album. I was like, let's do it. So I remember just like, like, I'm just gonna, and I wrote some music, and all this stuff and record an album and put it out with Steeplechase. Just the worst deal I ever made. But and then I think I somebody hit me up, like I maybe posted a video on YouTube of me playing or something and a gig, and then someone was like, I have a gig for you in Italy, and I was like, wow, cool, kind of far. And then I just asked all my friends, I was like, do you know somebody in Italy? Like, like, so I tried to find like a couple of small gigs to like make sense to cover the flights, and stuff like that. And that's like when I was like, actually you can like hit up friends and people and try to book stuff. And that was kind of like 2000, I don't know, 13 or something like that. Or 14, something like that. And I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. And then I did the first kind of run out of New York, and I was like, that's so cool. I was like, it's amazing. I can be somewhere else. And, and slowly but surely, like I booked more stuff and I found some people to help a little bit. There were some booking agents, like small kind of local booking agents in Italy. And then there was a friend in Austria that booked like a week, and I connected it, and I did the worst routing in human history, just like going back and forth like trains and buses, just like crossing the country. But it was cool, so that was kind of like this process that happened, that kind of led me at least to the jazz stuff. And then I would say in about maybe 2017 or something, I decided that I don't want to be just like a jazz player, that I also want to try and explore other music and be open to the idea of playing not in jazz clubs. So I started connecting with other people and played like with some hip hop artists and some other things in the world. And then we did a tour, like a 2 month tour with this band called White Denim. Do you guys know that band?
I've heard the name,
Yeah,
ironically, but I've never heard the music.
Great people in the US, and that was really cool. That was very eye-opening because we played like 300 to 600 cap rooms for basically 2 months, and it was great experience because it was just like very different playing clubs, which I did until that point, right? So for that kind of chunk of time we started playing a bunch of shows and tours in Europe, which was really fun, but very different energy when you go to a club and they're like 100 people or something sitting and having a glass of wine versus 300 or 500 people like kind of like jumping with a glass of beer and super excited. Like the energy is just vastly different, and I was like, wow, I'm kind of in love with this energy. So I basically kind of like the jazz stuff moved to this more electric and more energetic kind of place, I would say, to the point that that it was like, getting to a place of less jazz, if that makes sense, But still, I mean, still improvised music, and still people would say jazz, just like not a jazz trio in the classical kind of format. And that kind of kept escalating. And then I wrote some lyrics to this project that I released maybe 2 years ago or something. And it's like something I produced, and it's kind of like along the lines of like hip hop and jazz and this kind of thing. And it was like with a bunch of artists, with Big Yuki and Timofey playing bass on some tracks, and Adam Neely playing bass, and a bunch of friends and folks that are like amazing artists that I love working with and hanging. So we just kind of did this whole thing, and I produced like 14 or 15 songs. It was kind of project, and that's definitely like not a jazz kind of thing. That was like, and then that basically we started playing this kind of stuff, and then this band that's called Jelly Club kind of took it even to more popular place, and I was like, this is great, but also I really want an upright bass now, and so then basically, a year or less, I kind of revived this, like, okay, totally drums, like acoustic drums, no triggers, just like that, with upright. And I was like, there's enough space for like this more popular stuff. I also work with a bunch of artists, so I produce and write music, and working on kind of 2 EPs now. And then, and then this jazz trio, which I'm super into. And so there's enough space in the bandwidth, in the sense of musical sense, so it's not the same thing, just very different. So so this is kind of where I am today. This is how it kind of
nothing major, just like what you're up to on the daily at this point, not intense at all, not at all. It's I mean, first of all, thank you for sharing. It's an incredible journey, and I think it's, as you're talking, all the stories and feelings and emotions, no matter sad or happy, of me in college for music as well, were coming up. Man, that ear training killed it. That, man, I did real well. The sight singing, no, sight singing was terrible. Basically, I would just walk in and be like, just fail me. I'm just gonna go. I'll see you later. As long as I get A's in the other side of the course, it'll even out. It's okay. But yeah. But so obviously, I kind of, in that story, heard like when that switch flipped, that you were like, guitar, musician, like it's time, it's the thing. I'm now on that track. But when did the switch happen for like content creator? Like, when was it like, oh my gosh, like I can be a content creator. I'm going to do this. I'm going to put energy into it. Like, I'm interested in that too.
It's interesting. So I was good friends with Sam from Pickup Jazz back in the day. We actually did the first Pickup Jazz show at my place in Brooklyn, where do you guys know Pliny? You probably know Pliny.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So Pliny stopped by, and like a bunch of like this kind of like guitar hang, and I remember I played like a song, and with a friend of mine, and he was like, after the song, he was like, oh, so did you write a solo? And I was like, what? I just didn't understand the question, because in that world they kind of like, it's like almost like classical music. I mean, playing is amazing, not to take anything, but the idea of the show, and the same thing with bass, it's like it's through composed, and I was like, cool, so it was just like the mindset is like amazing. Anyway, so I was good friends with Sam, and then he did this Instagram stuff, so I started understanding that world a little bit, and just like we hung out, and I made some content for Instagram. I mean, just like low-key videos, and I was like, oh, okay, I have people that are following me. It doesn't do anything in the real world, but okay, fine. And then I remember being super broke, in like, I used to live in Flatbush for some years, and then I was like, I got into like Gary V and all this kind of like stuff, and I was like, oh, that's cool, maybe I should like vlog. So I tried to do this vlog thing, but I have no gear, and also zero patience and understanding. So I just put my phone, the worst sound. I didn't even know how to use a DAW. I didn't have an interface. I didn't even understand what it was. I was like, no idea. So just put the phone, and I did some vlogs. They were pretty bad, like really bad.
When was this? What year was this?
That was like maybe 2019, 18.
Okay, so you had been playing for a while before you started doing this.
So yeah, I was you talk playing with YouTube or like content?
No. Before you started creating content, you mentioned that you started going on the road, doing tours, etc. 2013, 2014. So it had been years. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Okay.
So yeah, music was, for sure. And then I try to do this vlog thing, and I try to do it every day. But again, I didn't really edit it. I had no idea about editing. It was just like kind of like, I'm just doing something and put it on the internet. And okay, I didn't understand any concept of like how to use it. But some of them had some views. It was like, okay, fine. And then I kind of like got tired of it and just stopped. I think I just started playing more shows or tours, and I was like busy. I was like, okay, I'll let it be. And then it kind of just sat there, and then COVID hit, and I was like, again, in a situation where I lost most of the work, and I was also very broke, and I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna buy a camera and try to do this for real, and spend that was the most expensive purchase I ever made. It's like $2,000 camera, and like $300 return that mic, and then tax. I remember I was like okay, let's hope for the best, and that was a little under 3 years ago, or 3 years ago, I guess. So since then, I basically kind of made a commitment with myself to try and post a video once a week, or at least something consistent. And I made all possible mistakes. So just the way you learn: no sound, no video, delete the files. Delete the edit, like anything great, like no, everything just like, okay, again.
Yeah. The bad audio is always the worst one, isn't it? That's always
at least bad audio. I had videos with no audio because I did connect something, but the other thing was not plugged, so it's just like, and I didn't know, so I would like shoot for like 3 hours, and I'll be like, oh, okay.
So
no video this week.
So in the music space, obviously musicians are wanting to play more music. Like you already mentioned, you graduated from school, you went to started doing some gigs, things like that.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned that you committed to doing this content thing. So what was the reason for that?
Well, I think there are like two reasons, I guess. One is I'm kind of making videos for myself when I was in high school, because I felt very lost, and I felt like I'm just shooting darts in the dark in every possible direction. And I was like, something is going to hit, but I have no idea which one worked, And I was like, I would practice a lot and I would try to do this thing, but I didn't know what I'm doing. You know, I had no idea. And I had in the beginning, when I studied guitar in high school, I didn't have really good guitar teachers. So it's kind of like, I just didn't know what I'm doing, but I really wanted it, but I just didn't really know. Later on, I met some great teachers and you know, it worked out, but yeah, a lot of frustration, a lot of kind of like stress. I was like, so how do you play the scale? Do I need a scale? What is this song? What is it? How do you solo? How do you, what, you know? So, and I don't know. I just felt like it would be cool to be like, hey, you know, it's not that complicated. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of intention. It's a lot of love, but also like, hey, check it out. If you actually sing this, you have to understand what you're doing and like play it slow and whatever. You can also play it fast, but like, you know, like just understanding the fragments and the elements. So that's a big deal. The second side of it that I know from some of my friends. So I'm good friends with Adam Neely and good friends with Paul Davids and a bunch of these kind of folks in that world. Again, I knew them before I was like doing YouTube. Again, I met Adam Neely like playing music, and then I met Paul through Adam, and we kind of hung out. And then eventually I did start doing YouTube. So you know, I'll be like, hey man, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
And you know, and they're very kind and helpful. And one of the things that Adam always tells me is like, man, just be consistent. So I did see the value of bringing value to the other side. Whereas like, you know, if I'm putting an album out, I have more chances that these guys will check it out and listen to the music, you know, and it's kind of like a fair trade in that sense for me. I'm happy to share things I know, and I'll try to articulate it in a hopefully a decent way. And for me, I'm like, yeah, if some, you know, 50 people or 100 people more or whatever it is, listen to this music that I care about a lot, that's awesome. You know, that's really cool. So
it's amazing. Yeah, that's really good. And I mean, when I watch your videos now, so like we've heard the before your story, so we'll talk a little bit about now. When I watch your videos now, it seems like you have like really done a fantastic job on like understanding those marketing angles, right? As well, like you have to understand and study like, where do I put a hook? What is a hook? You know, all that stuff, which is what we all see in those videos, right? Any of them. It's all that like, I've got this cool thing. Here's a cool little teaser on what it's going to be. Now let's dive in so that we can retain people. So it's very interesting to kind of see and hear your story of like starting with a vlog and going into this world of like what seems like a very well structured, taught and produced video every single week. So that's an applause to you and your consistent work and efforts. It's amazing stuff. But yeah, really, really crazy, really good story. John, go ahead.
Yeah. So, you know, you made it to this point, and like Ryan said, you know, for anybody who wants to check out Rotem's videos, you definitely should, because he's an incredible player. But if you just notice the structure and the professionalism in his videos, he has it looks like from the outside, Rotem, it looks like to us that you have the process really dialed in. So you just told us that, you know, you started, you didn't really know what you were doing. You were just kind of throwing darts at the wall, at least with playing, and then eventually with trying to do content as well, right? And you were getting some help. And now from the outside, it looks like I just said, that you have this thing dialed in. You have a style in terms of video. Like you have a style, you have a similar structure for all the videos. They're really great. They're really educational. They're really entertaining. It also helps when you like jazz and you like to watch the videos as well and hear you playing. But what's the reason? So like you said, you committed to doing videos consistently, and you're doing that now. And you've got to a point where it's pretty damn polished. It sounds really good. So what's the point? Like, what are you trying to get to? What are you trying to do with this?
Well, I guess like my experience is very different than your experience. So for me, I don't know what I'm doing. So for
That's
me,
a fine answer, by the way. That's a fine answer.
No, what's that?
I said that's a fine answer. That's okay. It's still an answer. It works.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really trying to figure it out, honestly. I don't understand how that world works. And I don't really
What
see
world?
YouTube, the action and reaction, you know. I don't see the causation like really clearly, you know. And so I am trying to understand it. The end goal, I don't know, there's no real end goal. I guess it would be cool to have more people connected to it, so when I'm playing a show they can come and hang at a show. That would be
Yeah.
awesome. That I guess that's maybe the end goal, like basically like saying like I can say like, hey, this, this jazz trio album, or the show we're playing with the other kind of popular project, hey guys, we're playing a couple of shows in Boston, come hang, and let's do this, and actually people will be like, we're excited, we like you and the vibe, and we like the music, and we checked it out, and we want to come to the show. That would be amazing to see it in reality, because at the end of the day, for me, like I'll do the video kind of like once a week, and I don't see it in real life. I can go to the app and see like numbers, be like, oh, this video is doing better than the other video, but this is doing worse than this video. But that's it. It's not like financially crazy or anything. I mean, it's not, I don't see it really day to day. It's not like I don't meet a lot of people in the street, be like, hey man, love that pentatonic video. Except when you go to NAM, then you meet folks. So it's cool. I don't have a lot of interaction day to day that are talking about YouTube, for me. So it's nice that you guys actually dig it. So thanks.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah. So go ahead, Ryan.
John. Okay, I'll go. I'll just say, yeah, I'm not going to throw back to you a bunch. That's terrible. But yeah, I would say on the outside, just so you know, like, just being completely honest, you definitely have it dialed in. And it's so incredible to me to know that, like, you don't even, like, you're not even realizing that, like, that's dialed in. You're like, I don't know. Am I doing it right? I don't know. But like, it's just, I don't know. There are so many, and John and I know this, and we talk about this a lot. There are so many places for people to go find information all over the internet, all over YouTube. But that's just information. It's not the right information or the right style of information. And there's too much of it half the time, right? To where anytime a guitarist picks up a guitar and they're like, let me look at YouTube, their practice time is gone after 3 videos and they didn't play a thing, right? And to see the people like yourself doing it in a way that I even watch as like somebody that I would consider advanced guitar player, and I still learn and I'm still engaged, like, you're nailing it, man. So good work. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So Rotem, it sounds like in general, you like what you're doing. You're doing it because you like it. And it sounds like it's kind of a tool for connecting with, let's call them fans, right? People who just dig your stuff, people who might want to come to a show, people that you can connect with, etc. It sounds like that's kind of a tool for you. But if we look out into the future, we know that things change. YouTube wasn't here several years ago, right? YouTube is this new thing, and then now there's all these people who have these huge channels, and everybody, everybody in the music space, at least we're talking about music, watches these guys on YouTube. But that's not going to last forever. 100 years from now, YouTube probably won't exist anymore. So let's say 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, we hear all this buzz about AI and about how things are changing, this new gear that's coming out that's changing things, or you can go to a software and like write a song by clicking a button and things like that. So in terms of you connecting with your, let's call it audience, just to use a term, the people that like you, right, that you want to connect with, that they want to connect with you, have you thought much about what's going to happen when the YouTube thing starts changing? What do you think about the whole idea of this AI stuff? What do you think about all that?
Yeah, there are a lot of thoughts. So I think, first of all, like you said very accurately, YouTube will change, and it doesn't matter if it's Instagram or YouTube or TikTok or something else that we don't know what it's called. I think the point is connections and connecting to people. So from one perspective, just to reinforce what you said, when you have followers on Instagram, they're not your followers, they're Instagram followers. Like when you have followers on YouTube, they're not your followers. I mean, they follow you, but they're not yours. They're actually YouTube, right? So the only asset that we can have is engaging with the audience. And the only asset, or I would say the only tangible asset that we have as creators, is emails. at the end of the day, emails or phone numbers if you have their phone number, but some other way to communicate and to actually reach your fans or people you're connected with. I don't know fans, but people that like what you're doing. So yes, I think about it a lot. I started basically kind of planning the next couple of months and how they would look like. And one of the things that I'm planning to do is starting to do live streams, weekly live streams, probably in a week or two. And the live stream would just be kind of like stuff I want to talk about and kind of, sort of like a YouTube video, but a little more interaction. And one of the things that I don't know how to do yet, but I'm planning to do that, is trying to understand how to bring these people and keep in touch with them. So maybe I'll try to do something with email or something that indeed, like when, and not if, but when YouTube will go away, I didn't lose these years of investment in that sense.
Sure.
So it's always a question of, I think, understanding that these platforms are not yours. The only place that is yours is maybe a website that you own, and you rent space because you pay a little bit for hosting, but except that you own it, right?
Yeah.
So it is an important concept. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, and that's something really important for, like you said, if somebody's just getting into creating content and you're going on a platform to post something, you don't own the post. Like you just said, you said it really well. You don't own the post. You don't own the interactions. You don't own the followers, etc. There's nothing that you can do with it. So if those companies go out of business, you're screwed. In business, there's a saying that the most dangerous number in business is one. If you have one of anything, you're screwed. One bank account, one platform, one source of revenue, one gig, anything can be taken away. So I think you make a great point. So here's an interesting question for you. Nowadays, the whole idea of marketing on the internet in general has been around for over a couple of decades so far. And, with, I think there's like, I could be misquoting. It's either like 3 or 4 billion, or it's like 6 billion people. I think 6 billion people have smartphones. 6 billion. But let's say most of those people are connected to the internet. Well, with all of these people connected to the internet, so many people creating content, especially people talking about like marketing and all this stuff online, the idea of collecting an email address, the idea of, hey, put your email address in for this thing, people are resistant to that, right? They see it, they don't want to do it anymore, they don't want a PDF, they don't want this thing. So do you have thoughts on, even if you, in the future, let's say YouTube goes away, Instagram goes away, etc., and you have these communication tool, which is email, what happens when people want to stop responding to emails? Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a fair question. Well, first, I think like if they genuinely liked what you're doing, I'm not saying that they're going to give you their email necessarily, but they will probably also follow you in the next platform. So I think that's, if you're able to create and understand people to a certain extent, hopefully when the new platform is there, and assuming your platform was burned to the ground, you can, revive these connections in some way. But yeah, I mean, I think it's important to try and understand how to reach people. And indeed, if emails might be less and less a part of the discussion, maybe phone numbers are, a part of the discussion more and more.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a crazy thought, right? Especially for me, I'm not young, to think about like all this stuff going away that I've like used forever. But at the same time, one thing that you kind of said there that I don't even think two things I should say that you didn't really realize you were saying. One, the fact that you're building everything with that focus is like, you're going to you'll win. Like you'll do well. You're doing it for the right focus of the followers, connecting with people, making sure that you're building a community. It's rare, sadly rare, that a lot of the content creators, not just guitar players or anything, just in general, a lot of content creators are out there basing the entire thing on revenue. And that works, sure, but you don't build that like one-to-one feeling relationship, right? And by building that, like that's what in marketing, like we would call like customer for life. Like they'll never leave you if you build that one-to-one, because it's a true one-to-one. So I applaud the direction and desire there. But the last thing you said that I'll just ask a question on is that I think a lot of people have hesitancy and kind of like pushback on the idea of newer platforms as they come out, because they've worked their butts off for 10 years, 20 years on YouTube, and they're at, 2 million subs. And like, they're like, I'm not moving to TikTok. I'm not doing that. No, I'm not doing that. I've worked my butt off over here. I'm resistant to that. I don't want to do it. So are you saying that like you would be somebody that would always be kind of following that next thing that's happening and kind of going in that direction? And do you think other content creators should always be testing new platforms that are coming out and coming on the rise?
Yeah, let me just make sure this AC is off. Okay, great.
It's okay. I need mine on. It's hot.
Well, I think it's a very good idea to, like you were saying, to not have all your eggs in one basket. I think it's a very good idea to learn new platforms and understand how people communicate, and to try to be on top of it. There's also a lot, like, right? So there's also some amount of time and information that we can process in a day. So I would give good advice for myself. It's like, go learn how to do TikTok, but I'm not doing it at the moment because I'm trying to figure out how to do YouTube. Once I feel like I figure out a little bit more consistently, I might dedicate serious time to do that. But right now, I'm not. I am trying to understand how to do short content on YouTube, which is actually the same thing as TikTok. But nevertheless, I'm not actually posting that on TikTok for no reason, but this is the premises. So yes, it is a good idea, but we also need to understand there's a limited amount of time, and it just depends what you want. I'm not seeing myself as a business. I'm practicing a lot of hours a day. This is like my practice, and it's like this is what I'm doing. I'm waking up and I'll practice and I play piano and I learn songs and I'll play with people and I write music. I also do YouTube and I also care about it, but I'm not dedicating most of my time to do YouTube. I do like it and I do care about it, and maybe I should do a little more or dedicate more time, and maybe I will decide to do that. But at this moment, like I do practice quite a bit of hours a day, and I can say like, it's not leading you anywhere, but it's like I really care about it. I really care.
Yeah. I mean, that's an incredible distinction to make as well. I think like the distinction of, and like, I say wall, but it's not a wall, like putting up borders around like, no, like my primary is this thing and I'm owning that. Like that's the primary. This YouTube thing is secondary. It's helpful. It's really good. But like the primary is I'm a musician. I need to play. I need to practice. I need to do these things and always grow in my skill and my musicianship. That's a good distinction to have. I think some people are struggling between that a lot of the times when they're trying to follow this content creation thing, and they're like, well, let's just do that more, and then I stop practicing, and then it's a struggle sometimes.
And it's a struggle. If it just depends what you say. I was just talking with Rick Beato the other day, and we were talking about it, and I told him, I kind of talked to him about it. I was like, do you think I should spend more time doing YouTube? And he was like, it's interesting. It's like, I have no, like, this is not something I do. He's like, for me, like Rick is saying, like, yeah, clearly I just want to spend all my time doing this. There's no like, let me shed 5 hours guitar. He's a great guitar player, great piano player, amazing musician, but it's like, he's like, no, I'm doing this. I'm creating this world and creating this content. There's no doubts about how he's going to spend his time and what is the cut. But I mean, yeah, so for me, there is a little bit of that. Going back to the question and kind of like trying to answer it. I mean, I don't know how AI is going to influence it, but I mean, at the end of the day, I do feel that, we have access to something new that maybe it's like having the internet again, and, we'll have to figure it out and see what happens and test things and try. We all have access to it, luckily. So we'll start understanding and learning as we go, and probably will change some things, but the initial intention is going to be the same. We're still going to be humans and people that crave connections and love
Mm-hmm.
and like to learn and all these things. And like Gary Vee was saying about social media, it's like it's kind of like gossip on steroids, which is a really nice way to put it in
Mm-hmm.
my view. It's just like, yeah, people always gossip. It's just now it's faster. If I say something and you tweet it and he's tweeting it and this guy, so it's just way faster to way more people. So it's going to happen again with any new platform or with AI. It's the same thing. People are always freaking out about things. It always happened. Just you didn't hear about it. Like you didn't hear that the baker was freaking out about it because he was in the next town and he didn't go to the next town because it wasn't your town. It was, 2 days ride on a horse, so it's like, yeah, you just didn't know he's freaking out. Now
Okay.
people are freaking out 3.1 seconds after something happened, and you see everybody freaking out, and then you're freaking because they're freaking. So it's freaky, So I do think AI will make us more connected, will give more possibilities to people, but we'll need to learn how to utilize them, and we'll need to learn how to use our creativity and imagination and not let a machine do that. It's cool. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing as like, okay, so we don't need physical labor, so we can do some of these basic programming and maybe kind of like dull tasks and give it to this machine, but we still need to tell it what to do.
Yeah.
Maybe there will be a time that we it will be completely independent, but that's a different story. For now, it sounds like it's a very strong and powerful machine that has a lot of capabilities, and it's very accessible because you can write text and not know how to code. My wife is a data scientist. She's coding and she knows this kind of stuff, and she's like, it's amazing. I can save time using this thing, or like a colleague of her used it for something and it saved him like a couple of hours, instead of just writing this specific code. It's like, God, it's amazing. So I think at the end of the day, it's how we're going to utilize it and what we're going to do with it. And that's the big question. I don't have an answer. I think it will be an interesting process, though.
So I want to tie together a few things that we've been talking about, and then fast forward again on the topic of the whole AI thing. So number one, I think something that we kind of talked about, but we didn't state it directly earlier when we were talking about you creating content, was Ryan acknowledged this, that you seem to be coming from a place of giving and providing value. And I think that's important to just state for anybody wanting to do content, for wanting to produce things, use these tools that we're about to talk about. If you're coming from a place of wanting to genuinely solve problems and provide value for people, like you said, Rotem, like you would make these videos for yourself in high school, that's why people like you, because it's valuable and they feel that, right? They feel the love, so to speak. And as long as you do that with no matter what content you're creating, no matter what platform you have, no matter how you're communicating, phone, email, text, Facebook, doesn't matter. People feel that and they will reciprocate it, right? So that, I think that's the most important thing. The second thing is, you mentioned about, we talked about, jumping around to different platforms and kind of running out of time. There's only so much time, right? And there's a useful metaphor that I'll just mention real quick that can be useful for anybody who wants to do multiple projects, or like yourself, you're trying to practice, you're trying to do YouTube, you're trying to do gigs, you're trying to do this, recording, doing all this stuff. When it comes to at least the business side of things, and specifically something like posting on a platform, or trying to generate followers. Let's say you're going to start posting on TikTok, for example. If you can imagine, you ever seen a spinning plate? Like on it, you get a stick and you spin a plate on top. You ever seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the metaphor is basically, you want to focus on one stick and get one plate spinning before you touch anything else. It takes a while, right? You have to set it up, you have to spin it, you have to make sure it's balanced and everything's good. And when everything's good, then you can go pick up another stick and another plate and start spinning it. And then you can go back to the first one and make sure that everything's still spinning. Then you can go to the second one, make sure that everything's still spinning, then go to the third one. But I think it's important for people it's extremely easy to get overwhelmed when there's so much to do. And these AI tools and all that stuff only makes it worse. It's more leverage, it's more things, it's more stuff that you can play with and that you can mess with. So fast forwarding to the AI stuff, I'm curious about your perspective on the music industry as a whole as a result of like AI generated music, people not actually writing songs. And if we think about in the context, if we think about, you know, before the internet, musicians write music, they create albums or singles, they go on tour, they play shows, they play gigs. That's how they build an audience, that's how they build a following. And obviously we had record labels and things like that, and we still do, right? But now people are starting to, you know, there's YouTube musicians only, like YouTube bands. There are AI bands, right? There are people who don't even play music at all, and they click some buttons and quote write songs, you know, with AI and things like that. So how do you think the music industry, how the music industry works? How do you think that's going to change, and how is it changing now?
Well, it's very big questions. I think in the last few decades, we lost a lot of gatekeepers, right? So back in the day, if you wanted to make an album, you basically had to be signed to a label because the process of recording was so expensive that nobody could afford it, right? So if you were an artist and you signed to, you know, Sony or something, and you went to the studio and made or Blue Note, whatever it is, right? And you made an album for that company, you had the access to the studio, to the engineers, and also it also kind of meant that you made it because they would promote it. And, you know, then again, there were a lot of artists that I'm sure didn't get a deal that probably didn't record an album, you know, or we don't really know about them because in that moment in time, I mean, it doesn't make sense that I'm sure there are other artists in, you know, in the time of Jimi Hendrix and Coltrane, right? That are great artists we just don't know about, and that's also sad, right? Because they didn't have the access. Now we have a lot of access, right? Because this laptop is recording device, and, you know, I'm literally recording things here, which is amazing. The only thing is everybody can do that, right? So you have this sort of democratization process of music, which I think is really great, but it's also a sea of information. So how indeed do you shine, quote unquote, instead of person X? Well, I think in that sense, it's, well, something needs to be special. Whether it's the music that is very good, whatever good means, it doesn't mean any specific thing, but, you know, good for the period, good emotionally, good for whatever it is, or it needs to have some edge that is like very marketable, or for some reason people like to interact with your content, right? You're amazingly funny, you're really serious and say really interesting things when you do say them, whatever it is, it could be anything, right? But it's just there is some interaction that is meaningful for people, and I think that will just kind of escalate in the sense of like it will be harder to shine from the sea of channels that are on YouTube, or the sea of information that is being uploaded to all platforms. I mean, right, to Spotify and every streaming platform. But at the end of the day, again, if you believe in what you do and you're trying to do something honest, I do believe in that. And I don't have a quick fix for it, but I think being consistent, right? So I just assume that, you know, if somebody makes a couple of songs with AI and this is not his or her passion, it's less likely that in the course of 40 years they're going to do that every week. You know, whereas me and my friends, we're obsessed with music, so we're making songs all the time, and this is all our plan. Again, songs, writing, creating, whatever it is, right? And this is all we want to do. So I have no, hopefully, other plans to stop doing it in the next foreseeable future. You know, so I think in that sense there is some consistency of creation that will maybe potentially differentiate people who are like go with an AI for something and do something for 1 second and drop it versus artists that are trying to express something meaningful. Yeah, it's like, I don't know if you saw that Casey Neistat, that video vlog that he did with the AI. I mean, yeah, there is something very dumbed down about AI right now because it's pulling from all these sources that are sometimes not as, it's kind of like a reduction of information. It's kind of like, again, maybe it will change and we'll get very deep. Awesome. But for now, it seems like the content is too proper. There's just not, it's just like everything is vanilla, it just, which is not what I want. And I think at the end of the day, it doesn't really portray something deep about the human experience. So I think it would be hard still to create art at this moment with what I'm seeing now with AI that is meaningful. I do believe that people can spin it and you can take a lot of information and get lyrics and get ideas and inspiration. It's a great tool. It's like the internet is not going to write songs, but I can go online and find rhymes and find these other songs that I didn't know about and be like, wow, this is amazing. Okay. And I Googled this song that I really liked, and it's called West Virginia Mine Disaster. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. What happened? And then I, did an arrangement for that song. But yeah, it was because of the internet. I found this version on YouTube that I really liked, and I made something with it, So is it an internet song? No. I mean, it's, it's the same thing as like you use an AI to do something meaningful. So there's access to even more information and also process information, which is interesting because we have so much information with the internet that we can't really deal with. So I think AI would be like a little bit of sort of like putting things in categories and filtering things from this vast, insane amount of information for us to be able to process, be like, okay, let's write a song or do a task of some reduction of information in a coherent way. Again, I don't really know what will happen. I don't know all the options, but I do feel strongly that this is kind of how I'm seeing the usage and the ability to interact.
Yeah. So it kind of sounds like the AI stuff, at least right now, is kind of like a useful tool for idea generation or inspiration. But I also got the idea that, as you were talking, it reminds me of the way people like handmade stuff, like handmade art, handmade bowls, handmade things versus things that are made from a commercial factory. There are always people who like the nice handmade things that obviously you said it perfectly. I can't remember exactly what you said, but it embodies the human experience. It has the energy of the human experience, right? And that's something that we connect to. So yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that. I love it.
Yeah. I would also say, I think we've talked about it before too. I think we literally asked like an AI guy, basically like, obviously it's going to go up. It's going to continue going up in this direction of use. But I argue the fact that it will get to a point where we still, for the next 2, 3, 4, maybe more generations, I would say, have this like innate desire and need and feeling like right here in the heart and the chest to have a one-to-one. To like still like be like, guess what? You're a human. Like I'm a human. Good. All right, we share that. Let's hang out. I really don't think that goes away. I think at first a lot of stuff becomes this very fanciful, like, oh my gosh, look at this thing that is doing this. But eventually, after use after use after use after use, you kind of crave it. You kind of crave like, yeah, but like, I don't know. Can I like just hang out with Rotem and like, write some music? Can I just do that instead?
Yeah.
I just think it's naturally within us to do that. And again, I think that we're going to find that in between using the technology and everything. But, we definitely have to pay attention. It's going to help a lot of people. My classically trained brain that can't like break rules maybe helped heavily in understanding that I can borrow a chord from another key signature or something, right? I may be able to be like, where do I go from this chord? And it'll be like, well, throwing you for a loop. Any of them. Feel free. Use them all. But like at this point, I remember you've probably seen videos. I mean, I see a lot of YouTubers that'll like write me a solo in A minor, and it's just like one string, 8 notes. And it's like, there you go. And they're like, this is terrible. This is awful. This is not good. It'll get better, but they're like, no, this is not a guitar player. So it's just one of those things, but super interesting. And I think that all of the topics are really good. And all that to say, like at your core, I really appreciate where you come from and what you're doing and what you have done. And again, we're really excited that you've been here. I know we want to wind down a bit here and make sure that we move on. But yeah, incredible. Good conversation, too. So I think one of the big things, John, I'll go to you for a few more questions here if you have any. But first and foremost, Rotem, I want to make sure that we send people all over the place for you because I'm truly addicted to all of your content, all of your music, all of that stuff. So where can people find you? Like, where do you recommend people find you? And don't worry, we'll put it in the show notes too.
Sure. I guess there's Spotify, so just my name, and there's some music there to listen. There's the YouTube if you're interested in more educational, I guess, guitar kind of things.
Be interested. It's great content. Be interested. There you go.
And then there's Instagram, which is kind of, I guess, also guitar and some playing. And yeah, so these are the places, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. We'll make sure that we have all the information in the show notes, just in case you didn't listen. It's just ROTEMSIVAN, like all over the place. All right, just type that in. He's a superstar. All right, he is like up there. All right, he's gonna pull some search results. Don't worry.
So, Rotem, this has been an amazing conversation, and I love hearing your thoughts behind where things are going, how things are for musicians now, and especially, where you came from. And I love that you just, it seems like you just had this dream, you just had this desire that the thing you wanted to do, and you didn't even know what you were doing. You just tried, you just did it, you called some people, you figured it out, whatever. I love that. That's amazing. And I think, number one, that's very inspirational for us, at least for me, and everybody listening probably who's wanting to reach that next thing, whatever there it is that they're trying to create, whether that's the band, a band, whether they're trying to write their first song or whether they have several albums and they're trying to get more fans, etc. I think that's very helpful and inspirational. So I have one last question for you. Based on everything that we talked about today, if somebody is, let's say the musicians out there who are trying to maybe follow in your footsteps, at least to some degree, right? Maybe they want to quote, make it as a musician. Maybe they want to, write their own songs, get their stuff out there, or maybe they even want to create content. What would you say? What one piece of advice would you give them?
Okay, so I think I would try to be clear. Sorry, 1 second.
How many of those waters you drink a day, man? That thing is like that's like a gas tank. That's drinking a gas tank of water over there, man. That thing is. Does that even fit? It wouldn't fit in my room.
Yeah, I know.
I don't think.
I think it's like the AC is always on, so it gets so dry. Sometimes like I drink a lot of water. Unintentional, but just like I feel thirsty.
That's horribly healthy of you. Terrible. Terrible.
I think I would try to understand in a truthful way what you're trying to do. What is it that actually you need to do that thing, right? So if you're trying to, again, let's say you want to play blues guitar, beautiful. What exactly makes your heart tick within blues guitar? And what do you actually need to know in order to do that on guitar? Because again, I remember this feeling of like, I need to know everything, scales and bossa and jazz and rock. And I was like, no, actually I don't. So let's be clear about what we need and what we want. So, if you're going to be a super shredder, you need to practice maybe slightly different things than if you want to play, B.B. King style blues. They're both amazing. They're just a language to articulate emotions and ideas and colors using this piece of wood and some strings, right? But oftentimes I think we kind of complicate things because we're like, oh, I can play this thing and classical and jazz. Okay, but what do you actually like? So asking ourselves what is interesting for us in a truthful way, what really excites us, and then understanding what consists of that. And instead of saying like Jimi Hendrix is a genius, great, he's amazing. I'm not saying he's not, but what is great about it? Instead of putting it on a pedestal, breaking it down, being like, oh, his sound is great, cool, let's work on sound. His phrasing is great, let's work on phrasing, etc., dot dot dot. Right. So instead of just breaking things down so we can understand how to work on them, and then I think understanding that things take time and not trying to do it tomorrow. Because again, if you truly love music and truly love and want to do this thing, it's going to be a while, and you're going to do it for a while. The same thing with any other job that we're doing or any other interaction, right? So if you're planning to be a YouTuber or you're planning to write a book, you're probably going to write a bunch of books, like it's not one book and you're done, like goodbye. It's very rare, and it's probably you didn't even want to write it if that's what happened. So the idea that I'm saying is like, actually we have a lot of time. It's not what we feel, but it's reality is saying like, yeah, you're going to do this for many years. So better spend this time actually learning the information well. That means that if you're shedding tomorrow and you have an hour to practice, don't go over all over the place. Be honest with what you need to work on. And maybe that means that you need to, sing these couple of notes in one position. Maybe you need to transcribe this BB King solo. And that's what you're doing tomorrow. And that's great. You don't need to transcribe this and play it fast and then learn a song and then post 5 YouTube videos. And no, like be specific, of what it is that you want to do and how you can break it down. So I think being honest to ourselves in a way and understanding that there is a lot of time, and these processes are oftentimes not a week or 2 weeks, it's months and years, but it's also okay because we're doing it and it's great. This is a part of the deal of being a musician, and I think a creator as well, an artist, right? So we're all artists. We're trying to do something to bring our view about the world and hopefully bring some love and happiness, so it's like so it's positive. That's again how I see it. There's some positive impact that we can have on someone's day, and it's amazing. Whether they listen to the music or they saw a piece of content, they're like, I can do this now, I can play this lick and I'm happy about it. So I think if we act a little bit in that sort of way, it will happen. And I will say the last thing, sorry, is that I can only share what I have been through, right? So, if I ask you guys or we ask somebody else, they'll share other things that worked or didn't work from them. So at the end of the day, a lot of people give a lot of advice and it's great, but you will have to figure out for yourself what is your path. And oftentimes it wouldn't be necessarily the most further from these avenues, but it's also not going to be the same thing, because you can be like, yeah, this really didn't work for me. I was like, okay, cool, man. You're yourself, So at the end of the day, when you ask people for advice, they're just going to tell you what they know with no harm intended, but it's their view of the world, and it's not necessarily the world. It's like people say, it's a point of view. It's one point. There are a lot of points. So,
yeah,
Beautiful.
that's good.
Beautiful.
That is beautiful. It's like intention, setting intention, and being really focused and understanding in that intention and just going through the process. But yeah, the intention is different for all of us, right? Some people might just want to learn them cowboy chords, bro. And that's it. And they're happy.
great.
That's
great.
good. Yeah, that's great. Some people, want to play jazz. So, it's a little different, a little harder, all right? But you could get there, all right? But yeah, I mean, Rotem, this has been wonderful, man. We really appreciate you being here. All the listeners I know are appreciating this as well. Don't forget to look all of your stuff up as well. I think you have like close to 60,000 right now at this point, because it's going to grow for sure. But 60,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. For jazz guitar, that is damn good.
That's
sir.
incredible.
All right. That is really good. And again, can't stop saying it. We'll continue to say it. Incredible YouTube content, man. and really good educational stuff there. And yeah, other than that, outside of making sure that right now you find Rotem and follow him and dig into all of his material, make sure also to, again, subscribe, get alerts, follow us on the podcast channels as well. And that's it. That's a wrap, John. So with that, I can say thanks for listening to the Future of Music podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys. Been a pleasure.